Hello students of class 4. Today we will learn unit 4 of your English textbook. Are you all ready? Okay. Before we go to page 60 of your textbook Marigold on unit 4, let me ask you a few questions. Did it rain last night for some of you? Was there a thunderstorm? Okay. For some there was rain. For some others there was rain a few weeks back. Now, when it rains, do you have this question in your mind? Why does it rain? Oh yes, many a times you have asked this question and your EVS teacher has given you an answer, right? Do you also have this question in mind sometimes? Why does the lightning flash before the thunder roars? Yes. Have you ever thought, why is it dark at night? I'm sure many of these questions keep coming to your mind, and you have asked them to your parents, teachers and friends. Today we will read a poem called Why. It's about a small boy just like you who keeps asking questions every time. Look at the poem on page 60. I'll read the poem aloud for you. Why? I know a curious little boy who's always asking why. Why this? Why that? Why then? Why now? Why not? Why by and by? He wants to know why wood should swim, why lead and marble sink, why sun should shine and wind should blow, and why we eat and drink. He wants to know what makes the clouds and why they cross the sky, why sinks the sun behind the hills, and why the flowers die. Some of these whys are not too hard to answer if you will try. Others no one ever yet has found the reason why. That's the why poem. Do you like the poem? Now, look at the picture of the boy on page 61. What do you think he's doing? Yes, he's looking at the piece of wood that's floating on water and the pebbles that are sinking. Now, look at the new words on top of the page. We must read these words. I'll read each of them and you repeat them after me. Let us start. Curious, lead, marble, sink, reason. Good. Now, find these words in the poem later, and as you read them in the poem, I'm sure you will know their meanings. Let us now look at some interesting activities on page 62. We have this section called Reading is Fun. Let us look at the questions there. Question number 1. Name a few things that sink. Can you think of some other things that sink? Yes, a pebble sinks. A bunch of keys may also sink. A stone, a brick may sink. There are many more other things that sink. You can find them out later. Good. Now question number 2. List 3 questions that the little boy asks. Now, we all know that this boy keeps asking many questions. Can you recollect 3 of them? Yes. He asks, why does the wood float but the lead sink in water? What makes the clouds? Why do clouds move? Why does the sun set? Okay, now let's go to question number 3. What sort of a boy is described in the poem? Is he sad, curious, or grave? Yes, of course, he is a curious boy. You are right. Now, let us look at the word building activity on page 62. The poem that we read had many rhyming words. The poem is here for you. Can you look at the poem once again and find the rhyming words? Yes, why rhymes with buy, sink with drink, sky with die, and try with why. Now, in this activity, you will have to fill in the blanks with some words from the poem, but these words have to rhyme with words in red in the sentence. Can you try them? Let us look at the first one. Why is the dash so high? So, in the blank there, you have to have a word from the poem which rhymes with the word why. Just try it. Yes, of course, the word is sky. So, why is the sky so high? Let's try the next one. Do you know the color of blank? So, you have to fill the word from the poem which rhymes with no. Yes, the word is blow. Do you know the color of blow? Look at page 63. Have you found who made the dash? A word from the poem rhyming with found. Yes, of course, it is cloud. Have you found who made the cloud? Let's try this last one. Put the glass in the sink after you finish your blank. Get a word from the poem which rhymes with sink. Sure, it is drink. That's excellent. So, put the glass in the sink after you finish your drink. Well done. Let us look at activity 2 on page 63. The spellings of these words are jumbled. Put them in the right order and try to get the word which are there in the poem. The first one is done for you. Let us look at the second one. W-I-S-M. Can you put that straight? Yes, it is the word swim. The next one, try it. Yes, it is lead. The fourth one, can you try that now? Yes, of course, it is marble. And the last one? Yes, it is hills. Now you've got all the words no, swim, lead, marble, hills. Can you make sentences with these words? Yes, try them out at home. This will be your homework. Now, let us go forward. In the next section, we have let's write. Let us look at some of those questions there. I'm sure you all are familiar with these questions. These are some questions that you keep asking many a times. Why do cats and dogs fight? Why do our parents tell us to walk across the road and not run? Why do I like ice creams? These are simple questions that you keep asking. I want you to discuss these questions with your parents and maybe also with your friends and write them down when you find time at home. Now, let's look at page 64. There is a fun time activity for all of you. You can try that on Sunday. Look at the picture that is there on page 64 and try it out. What do you have to do? You have to take an onion, 2 bottle caps and some paint. You can cut the onion into 2 halves, dip the onions in the colorful paints and try and create colorful designs in your drawing notebook. Try this out and then show it to your friends when you meet them and see what kind of designs your friends have made. Now, when you think of cutting onions, what comes to your mind? Yes, cutting onions makes you cry. Do you know why? Find out from your teacher when you meet her. On page 65, we have a funny poem about a man in an onion bed. Look at the poem. I'll read the poem for you. The man in an onion bed. I met a man in an onion bed. He was crying so hard his eyes were red, and the tears rolled off the end of his nose as he ate his way down the onion rows. He ate and he cried, but for all his tears he sang, "Sweet onions, oh my dears, I love you. I do and you love me, but you make me as sad as a man can be." Did you like the poem? Great. Let's move on. Now, I will tell you a story. The story of a little girl like all of you called Alice. The name of the story is Alice in Wonderland. One day, Alice was lying under a tree in her garden and her sister was telling a story. Suddenly, she noticed there was a rabbit that was hurrying by. She looked at the rabbit once again. It looked a very strange one. It had pink eyes, a blue coat, and a red waistcoat. As the rabbit hurried by, it took out a watch from his waistcoat pocket, looked at it, and said, "Oh dear, I'll be too late." Alice was wondering, a talking rabbit? And that has a watch? Out of curiosity, she tried to follow the rabbit. The rabbit went down a rabbit hole. It went down and down and down. As Alice tried to follow it, it fell through the rabbit hole down and down and down. She's wondering, is she going to the center of the earth, or is she going to slip through and go to the other side? Just as she was wondering, she fell tired on a heap of leaves. She looked around and found a small, tiny little door, so small that she could not really pass through it. Alice looked all around and found there was a golden key nearby. She picked up the key, tried to open the door lock, and the door opened. Alice peeped through the door and saw a beautiful sight. There was a lovely garden filled with flowers and fountains. But alas, Alice couldn't pass through the door and go to the garden. She just exclaimed, "Oh, how I wish I could be smaller." That is all for the story today. Do you like the story? Now, look at the beautiful garden on page 68, the garden that Alice saw out of the door. Let us now look at the important words that we must read on page 68. I'll read them for you. Please repeat after me. Scamper, hurried, popped, disappeared, whiskers. Look at these words in the story later, and I'm sure you will understand the meanings of these words. Let us now move on to the section called Reading is Fun. There are some questions for you here. Let us look at the first one. While listening to the story, what did Alice see? Yes, of course, all of us know that Alice saw that strange looking rabbit. The next question. What was different about the rabbit that Alice saw? Think for a while. What are the things that the rabbit had which normally rabbits don't? Yes, the rabbit could talk, it had a watch that it could read, and it wore a jacket and a waistcoat. Okay, excellent. Let us look at the questions on page 69. Question 3. Where did the rabbit go? Yes, we know that the rabbit went down a rabbit hole. Question number 4. How did Alice reach the wonderland? Alice followed the rabbit down the rabbit hole. She fell and fell till she dropped on a pile of dry leaves. Question number 5. What strange things did Alice see? Think of the things that she saw around. Yes, she saw a tiny door. She found a golden key nearby. When she opened the door with the golden key, she found a lovely garden. Question number 6. Describe in your own words the garden that Alice saw. Think of all the beautiful things that Alice would have seen in the garden: the flowers, fountains, the birds, the butterflies, the bees, and many more things. There could have been also rabbits and squirrels. Think of this beautiful garden that Alice saw. Write this down later as homework. Question number 7. Draw the garden of your dreams. Sometimes, do you dream of a beautiful garden, almost like the one that Alice saw? Think of it and draw a lovely picture of that garden on the Sunday afternoon when you're free. Excellent. Let us move on to question number 8, the next activity. We have to tick the correct answer amongst the 3 alternatives that are given to us. Let us try them. The rabbit had white eyes, big eyes, pink eyes. Which is the right answer? Yes, you're right. The rabbit had pink eyes, the third option. The next. Who was burning with curiosity? Alice, the rabbit, or children? Yes, Alice was burning with curiosity. The third one. Who fell down and down and down? Alice, a mouse, or the rabbit? Yes, it is Alice. Did some of you say it was the rabbit? No, the rabbit went down and down and down. But Alice, while following the rabbit, fell down and down and down. Okay, let's look at the other questions on page 70. Who said, "Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting"? Yes, of course, it was the rabbit who said these words. The last one, the garden Alice saw was big, lovely, small. Right, the correct answer is lovely. Excellent. Let's now go to the next section. Let's talk on page 70. The first question, describe some of the sounds you hear at night. Can you think of the sounds that you hear in your neighborhood? Maybe some dogs barking, maybe some owls hooting, crickets chirping, frogs croaking, or maybe a police patrol car making the sound of its siren. I want you to talk to your friends about these sounds that you hear at night later and find out what are the sounds that they hear in their neighborhood. Let's go to question number 2. Imagine you are Alice and your partner is a rabbit. What would you do? Again, try talking to your friends about this and see what they have to say about how they will manage to go down with the rabbit into the wonderland. Question number 3. What do you think Alice saw in the garden? We have discussed this before. She must have seen beautiful flowers, fountains, birds, butterflies, and so on. Talk to your friends about this too. Fourth question, how could Alice have got into the garden? Now you have to find some ways. How would Alice manage that? Talk to your friends. Find out how you can make Alice enter the garden. Are you going to make Alice tiny like the door? Or are you going to make the door bigger with magic? Talk to your friends and find out. Let us now go to the section Let's Write on page 70. You have to find one word from the story that means the expressions. The first one, to walk fast. Think of a word from the story which begins with the letter H. Yes, you're right. The word is hurry. The next one, to think. The word begins with the letter W. It is wonder. The third one, happy. The word begins with D. Yes, delighted. Question D, to be seen nowhere. Again, the word begins with D. Disappeared. Right. Question E, at once. The word begins with Q. You were right, quickly. Question F, move fast. The word begins with S. Can you guess that right? Yes, it is scamper. The last one, to be inquisitive, the word begins with C. Yes, we all know that. That's being curious. Okay, excellent. Let us move to the next. Look at question number 2 on page 71. There are some words that are given to us. We have to think of another word which is the meaning of these words and then find their opposite words. Let us start with the first one. Do you know the meaning of lovely? Can you think of another word that gives the meaning of the word lovely? Yes, it is beautiful. Now can you think of the opposite word of lovely? Yes, you're right. It is ugly. Let's look at the next one, talking. Can you think of another word that means talking? Yes, it is speaking. Can you think of a word which is the opposite of talking or speaking? Yes, the word is silent. Good. The next one, listening. Can you give a word that means listening? You're right. Listening means hearing. Can you think of the opposite? Maybe speaking. Yes. The next word, see. Another word for see. Good. It is look. Can you think of the opposite of look or see? It can be overlook or miss. Good going. Let us go to the last word in this section. The word is center. Can you think of another word that means center? Yes, it can be inside. Think of the opposite of inside or center. It can be outside or edge. Okay, let's move to the next. Now you have got all these words, lovely, talking, listening, see, center, their opposite words. You have to make sentences with these words as homework. Now let's move to the last question on page 71. We remember from the story that Alice too had many questions in her mind. Some of these questions that Alice had are given to you in the jumbled form in question number 4. You have to rearrange these words and make the question that Alice would have had in her mind. Let us try. Question A, talk, rabbit, how can. Can you guess the question? Yes, how can a rabbit talk? Put a question mark at the end of the question. Try the next one. Going, he is where? Where is he going? Question mark. C, read, he can time the. Can he read the time? Right. Question mark. The last one. Hurry is in a way he. Why is he in a hurry? Question mark. Look at these questions that you have written. Just see, most of the questions begin with words like how, why, where. Can you think of other words with which questions begin? Yes, when and what. Questions can also begin with words like can, have, do, could, and so on. Okay, so we have completed Unit 4. Can you recollect all that we learnt? We read a poem called Why. We learnt new words like curious, lead and sink. We learnt rhyming words like sink and drink, high and sky. We read the poem on the man in an onion bed. We heard the story of Alice in Wonderland. We learnt one-word substitutes and opposite words. We also learnt how questions are made. That is all for today. See you next time. Goodbye.